A visionary scientist born in Basra, Iraq, around the year 965, Al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham, Latinised as Alhazen, was a pioneering scientific thinker who, from his observation of light entering a dark room, made major breakthroughs in understanding light and vision. He set new standards in experimental science and completed his influential book of optics sometime around 1027. Ibn al-Haytham lived in early Muslim civilization. It was a time of great learning that spread from southern Spain to China. Men and women of different faiths and cultures studied science and wisdom of ancient cultures, adding to it and making breakthroughs that had an impact on the European Renaissance. Knowledge was highly prized. In Basra, for example, Ibn al-Haytham's birthplace, the library held more than 15,000 books including ancient works that were translated into Arabic. In the 11th century, Ibn al-Haytham was invited to Egypt to help build a dam on the Nile. After a field visit, he declined to proceed with the project. In Egypt, Ibn al-Haytham focused on making major breakthroughs in understanding light and vision. While sitting in a dark room, the story goes, he noticed a bright light on the wall that turned out to be an image of objects outside his room. Following his dark room observation, Ibn al-Haytham made more experiments and understood, light bounced off the objects outside, traveled through the hole in the wall of the room, and made the image. He sought comparisons to the human eye. The dark room was like an eye, and that is how people see. After he died around the year 1039, Ibn al-Haytham's book of optics was translated into Latin, passing valuable knowledge on to scientists leading the European Renaissance. Among those influenced by his work and methods were Italian polymath Leonardo da Vinci, German physicist Johannes Kepler, and English scientist Roger Bacon. The Polish astronomer Johannes Hevelius chose to honor Ibn al-Haytham and Galileo, crediting the former as the pioneer of the rational scientific method in his masterwork Selenographia. Published in 1647, the book was the first to chart the moon's surface as seen through a telescope. Ibn al-Haytham's work in understanding the fundamental nature of light underpinned the discoveries of many who came after him. Based on centuries of discoveries, the long work done in optics made possible the world of media and communications we live in today. Ibn al-Haytham grew up at a time when schools and libraries flourished in the Muslim civilization. Students had access to highly trained scholars who could teach a variety of subjects, including law, literature, medicine, mathematics, geography, history, and art. Debates and discourses were popular and took place in Arabic. Scholars enjoyed discussing ideas from newly translated ancient manuscripts. He is known to have said, "If I would be given the chance, I would implement a solution to regulate the Nile flooding." This claim reached al-Hakim, the Fatimid caliph in Egypt, who invited him to Cairo. Confident of his own abilities, Ibn al-Haytham boasted that he would tame the great Nile River by building a dam and reservoir. But when he saw the extent of the challenge and the marvelous remains of ancient Egypt on the river banks, he reconsidered his own boast, thinking, "If such a huge project could be done," he reasoned, "it would have been done by the brilliant builders of the past who had left us such fantastic architectural relics." If such a huge project could be done, he reasoned, it would have been done by the brilliant builders of the past who had left us such fantastic architectural relics. He returned to Cairo to inform the caliph that his solution was not possible. Knowing that that particular caliph did not entertain failure and that his life would be at risk if he were to disappoint him, Ibn al-Haytham feigned madness to avoid the caliph's wrath. He knew that Islamic law would protect a mad person from bearing responsibility for his failure. Despite the caliph's wild swings of mood, he nevertheless abided by Islamic law. Rather than executing or expelling Ibn al-Haytham from Cairo, the caliph decided to put the scholar under permanent protective custody. That was required by law in order to ensure his safety and that of others. Ibn al-Haytham was placed under what amounted to house arrest, far from the lively discourses and debates to which he was accustomed. Yet it just as life was at its bleakest moment. Ibn al-Haytham might have made the dazzling discovery for which he is best remembered. Legend says, one day he saw light shining through a tiny pinhole into his darkened room, projecting an image of the world outside onto the opposite wall. Ibn al-Haytham realized that he was seeing images of objects outside that were lit by the sun. From repeated experiments he concluded that light rays travel in straight lines, and that vision is accomplished when these rays pass into our eyes. Ibn al-Haytham confirmed his discovery by experimenting with his dark room, calling it al-Bayt al-Muslim, translated into Latin as camera obscura, which simply means dark room. After many additional experiments using special apparatus of lenses and mirrors which he built, he laid down his new ideas about light and vision in his 7 volumes Book of Optics. He was released from prison on the disappearance of the Caliph. Ibn al-Haytham died at the age of 74 in 1040. His greatest work, the Book of Optics, had perhaps begun from the confines of imprisonment and was completed around the year 1027, but its impact rippled out across the whole world. Both his optical discoveries, and the fact that they had been validated using hands-on experiments, would influence those who came after him for centuries. So how did that influence shine its light on later generations? In the early 12th century, Toledo in Spain was the focus of a huge effort to translate Arabic books into Latin. Christian, Jewish and Muslim scholars flocked to the city, where they lived alongside one another and worked together to translate the old knowledge into Latin and then into other European languages. Ibn al-Haytham's Book of Optics as well as some of his other scientific works were translated into Latin, making them available to European scientists including Roger Bacon, Johannes Kepler and even Leonardo da Vinci. How Ibn al-Haytham changed the course of science. Ibn al-Haytham's discoveries in optics and vision overturned centuries of misunderstanding. In his experiments, he observed that light coming through a tiny hole traveled in straight lines and projected an image onto the opposite wall. But he realized that light entering the eye was only the first step in seeing. He built on the work of Greek physician Galen, who had provided a detailed description of the eye and the optic pathways. Today the oldest known drawing of the nervous system is from Ibn al-Haytham's Book of Optics, in which the eyes and optic nerves are illustrated. Ibn al-Haytham suggested that only the light rays that hit the surface of the eye head-on would pass into the eye, creating a representation of the world. It was Kepler in the 16th century who corrected this and proposed that the object of sight, what is seen, comes from both perpendicular and angular rays that hit the eye to form an inverted image on the retina. Among Ibn al-Haytham's other insights was his understanding of the crucial role of visual contrast. For example, he realized the color of an object depends on the color of the surroundings, and that contrast of brightness levels explains why we can't see the stars during daytime. Ibn al-Haytham also subscribed to a method of empirical analysis to accompany theoretical postulates that is similar in certain ways to the scientific method we know today. He realized that the senses were prone to error, and he devised methods of verification, testing, and experimentation to uncover the truth of the natural phenomena he perceived. Up until this time, the study of physical phenomena had been an abstract activity with occasional experiments. In search of evidence, Ibn al-Haytham studied lenses, experimented with different mirrors, flat, spherical, parabolic, cylindrical, concave and convex. His practical results were clear. Visual objects seen by us through light refraction, across thick material, such as water and glass, are bigger than their real size, he wrote. This was a hint about the life of the father of optics and the first man to invent the camera we're using every day now, and more will follow in the future. Thanks for watching the video, and please leave us a comment telling us your opinion.